towards Europe. We're now learning that Ukraine's overnight attack on Russia's Belgorod region has caused significant power outages, leaving thousands of residents without electricity. Now, according to the regional governor, while power has been restored in nearly 34,000 households, around 5,400 people across 24 municipal areas remain in the dark. Listen in to what the regional governor had to say.
Недобрый вечер, к сожалению, для Белгородского района. Сейчас пока не понимаем, для какого еще количества населенных пунктов Белгородской области. Очередной ночной обстрел. Есть повреждения энергетики. Сейчас все аварийные бригады выехали на место. Сам еду к месту прилета. Сейчас разберемся в масштабах случившихся.
Meanwhile, the power supply situation at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant remains tense but is reportedly under control, according to the RIA. In related news, a fire broke out at a security staff building at Russia's Tops oil refinery following a drone attack, but authorities quickly extinguished the blaze. The refinery itself was targeted by drones earlier, but no casualties were reported. Shifting focus to more developments, rescue operations are underway on the Tibetan slopes of Mount Everest after a blizzard stranded hundreds of hikers over the weekend. The incident occurred during the start of China's 8-day national holiday as tourists trekked towards Everest's eastern face. A few eyewitness videos taken over the weekend shows hikers wading through deep snow and poor visibility. Meanwhile, Chinese state media has reported that authorities have guided some 350 trekkers back to safety and that they have reached the small township of Kudang in Tibet. Additionally, contact has been established with more than 200 remaining hikers. But heavy snow and rainfall continues to make rescue operations challenging, blocking paths and roads in the Himalayas. Moreover, guides have described the snowfall as unusually heavy for this time of the year, while rescuers are working to navigate the hikers safely through the hazardous conditions. Shifting focus to what's happening in Mexico, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has delivered her first State of the Union address. Now, in the address, Sheinbaum has stated that she is confident that the Mexican government will reach a favorable agreement with the United States and other nations regarding trade. She's also stated that the Mexican government will work to boost local technology. This comes as the government pushes Made in Mexico projects to develop electric vehicles, semiconductors, satellites and drones. Mexico has been at odds with the United States over tariffs and the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is up for review in 2026. Now, during the address, President Sheinbaum has presented her government's achievements during its first year in office. Listen in to what she had to say.
Estoy segura que llegaremos a un buen acuerdo con Estados Unidos y todas las naciones del mundo con relación a nuestras relaciones comerciales. En las próximas semanas estaremos presentando el prototipo del vehículo eléctrico línea, los avances del taller de diseño de semiconductores y también los proyectos de satélites nacionales y de un vehículo aéreo no tripulado producido 100% en México. Esto es parte de un proyecto ambicioso que presentaremos en las próximas semanas, que le llamamos México, País de Innovación, que incluye el desarrollo del Laboratorio Nacional de Inteligencia Artificial.
With us on the broadcast is Dr. Sharat Kohli, senior economist, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX. Now, Mexico too had been a target of Trump's tariff hikes earlier itself. Meanwhile, it is on a quest to make in Mexico. Where do you think the discussions, the negotiations between Mexico and the United States will be headed to next? And do you think that they will manage to boost domestic manufacturing in order to counter Trump's tariff policies?
Well, Pia, greetings to you and NewsX World viewers. I think the road ahead is not as easy as President Claudia Sheinbaum feels because, Mexico borders US, and President Trump's Make America Great Again, one of the policy initiatives or one of the principal intent behind this whole tariff war is bringing manufacturing into the United States. And we should also not forget, Pia, that the largest trading partner of US is Mexico. The total bilateral trade between the two countries is almost close to $1 trillion. So practically anything and everything, if I make a list of what all is being imported and exported, I'll probably burn away the rest of the time of your bulletin. Everything is being, traded because it shares a very, very porous border. Because President Trump is, intending to do the entire thing with a wall to prevent illegal immigration into the U.S. So the road ahead is not easy, although Sheinbaum enjoys a 70% approval rating in Mexico. She's a very, very popular leader there. And her intent is to bring manufacturing, as we just heard, of satellites, semiconductors, and so and so. But the problem here is that this is a very strange situation as far as US is concerned, because US cannot ignore Mexico. At the same time, US cannot afford to let Mexico go off as well, as far as tariffs are concerned. We know that there are tariffs on, for example, cars, there's 50%. On some other products, there's 25%. Steel, aluminium is 50%. Cars is 25%, I beg your pardon. So I think the tariffs are still there, but there has been a 90-day suspension to discuss and find out a way, because the volume of trade is so large and dependence on some of the items is so heavy that US will find very difficult, and same goes for Mexico. Mexico is going to find it very difficult to set up those factories, bring in investments from US especially, because President Trump is going to be opposing it. And also we should not forget, Pia, that there is a trade deficit with US has, and the trade deficit is very, very large. It's almost close to, I mean, if I divide $1 trillion into half, about $600 billion is the export being made by Mexico, is the export from US to Mexico. So I think the trade deficit is what also bothers President Trump. We should not forget, every time he talks about levying these tariffs, he does refer to the trade deficit. So it's a very tricky situation. It's not as easy. I think there are plus and minus points on both the countries. Mexico on one side is dependent on US, and I would say the US also to a very large extent is dependent on Mexico on so many common use items, Pia, for that matter.
So you've pointed out to the fact that there are challenges. For the benefit of our viewers, could you explain what sort of challenges could Mexico face if it goes ahead with this particular plan?
Well, the challenges are quite similar, Pia, to what challenges that President Trump is facing with regard to China. Now, I'll give you an example of China to help you understand better. China has got control over the rare earth magnets. Now, the reason why China was given a 90-day extension, well, countries like India, it did not take much time for President Trump, India and Brazil for that matter, it didn't take President Trump much time to levy 50% tariffs. Whereas on China, it gave a 90-day extension. So what President Trump is trying to do, if he's seeing countries on which there are certain items being imported without which, I put this in inverted commas, without which US cannot survive even for a week. So with those countries, either he's given the extension or he's probably procrastinating the deliberations to see that some kind of deal is reached. So the challenges before Mexico would be, because most of the investments in Mexico, they come from the US. So whether US investors would like to invest in Mexico, whether it is semiconductors, however, Mexico cannot also afford to take the risk of closing the doors to America and inviting these investments from elsewhere. So it's a catch-22 situation. Obviously, the statements that come out from the heads of the state, especially Sheinbaum right now, I think they have to be sounding positive politically. You have to be politically correct while making a statement, but on the ground, the situation, as far as my analysis is concerned, is very challenging, very complicated, Pia.
Indeed, and speaking of Donald Trump, we do know that he is known for speaking his mind. How do you think he would react to these statements coming in? Because Trump has been pushing for domestic manufacturing within the United States as well. And he is looking at striking favorable deals that could bring in and usher in more investments into the US economy instead of investing in other countries.
Absolutely. That's what I said in the beginning, Pia, that President Trump is not going to like that the factory is being set up rather in Mexico than in the United States. So I have a feeling that a solution to this problem lies somewhere in between, that to a certain extent, Mexican businessmen or Mexican industry stalwarts may have to agree to make some investment in the United States. And to a certain extent, then Mexico would be allowed to set up or invite that investment in the country. The problem here, the main problem here is that the two economies are so deeply entwined to each other that it's very hard for America to have a similar attitude as it did for India. It cannot afford to do that to Mexico. Whatever President Trump may like to say about illegal immigration, building a wall and so. But the fact of the matter is that it cannot afford to do without the items which Mexico has been exporting. It ranges from tomatoes to some of very sophisticated machinery, Pia, at this point of time. I'm sure President Trump and his trade representative team is having a tough time to frame a deal. And I'm sure Claudia, the president of Mexico, is going to find a way out as to how this is going to be resolved. I am personally eagerly waiting for the 90-day period to be over, whether there'll be another extension or will things be resolved within that 3 months' time.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective on this very crucial development. More news we're tracking in at the moment. Former Mexican international footballer Omar Bravo has been arrested on suspicion of child sexual abuse. The 45-year-old was taken into custody in Zapopan, Jalisco, following allegations that he abused a teenage girl on multiple occasions over recent months. Authorities indicate there may have been previous similar incidents as well, and an investigation into this is ongoing. Bravo is known for his career as a striker with Guadalajara's Chivas. He has also represented Mexico at major international tournaments, including the 2004 Athens Olympics and the 2006 World Cup in Germany. The Jalisco prosecutor's office says that Bravo is expected to appear in court soon as investigation continues. Fans, meanwhile, have expressed mixed reactions on social media, with some showing support while others voiced concern. Legal representatives for Bravo have not yet responded to requests for any comment. All right, viewers, some breaking updates we're tracking.